The job offer came on a Tuesday, right as the afternoon sun was turning the skyscrapers of Manhattan into blinding towers of glass. Jake Riley wasn't usually one for panic buttons, but when the call flashed across his encrypted line, he knew it wasn't routine. This was the kind of money that made governments nervous, and the kind of problem that didn't have an easy solution. The client was Preston Sterling. If you lived anywhere east of the Mississippi and owned a bank account, you knew the name. Sterling wasn't just rich, he was the kind of rich that had private constellations named after his various corporations. He owned half of Greenwich, Connecticut, and the other half feared him. Jake drove out that evening. The Sterling estate, known simply as the Citadel, sat behind granite walls and a security system that could track a hummingbird's heartbeat. It was imposing, silent, and draped in a kind of velvet gloom, even in summer. He was shown directly into the main study. Preston Sterling was 65, but looked 90. He was sitting in a custom-built wheelchair, draped in a silk smoking jacket, looking less like a titan of industry and more like a ghost waiting for the final curtain. The room itself was museum quality, filled with original Rembrandts and the heavy medicinal smell of expensive illness. Mr. Riley, Sterling's voice was a dry rasp, barely louder than the hum of the air conditioning. "I understand you are discreet. That's what I'm paid for, Mr. Sterling, and expensive." Jake kept his tone level. Sterling managed a weak, dismissive wave of his hand. "Money is irrelevant. Time is not. I am dying." Jake waited. He wasn't a doctor, and he wasn't a priest. He was there to solve a problem involving people, secrets, or both. The doctors are useless. They call it a rare autoimmune condition. They pump me full of drugs and send me home to wait. I don't wait, Riley. I fight, and I investigate. Sterling leaned forward, the effort visible in the tremor of his shoulders. His eyes, however, were sharp, cold blue diamonds set in parchment paper. "I believe I am being poisoned, slowly, subtly, by someone very close." Jake nodded. Classic paranoia of the ultra-rich. He'd heard it 100 times. "Have you reviewed your staff? Food preparation? Security breaches? All of it, exhaustively. No trace of industrial toxins. No foreign agents. Nothing that registers on a standard test. But I am fading, and I know who is doing it." This was where the story took the hard left turn into the absurd. "The maid's daughter," Sterling stated flatly. Jake blinked. "I'm sorry." "Maria, my housekeeper. She's been with the family for 20 years, a model employee. Her daughter, Elena. She is the poisoner." Jake mentally filed through the profiles he'd been given. Maria Perez, mid-40s, emigrated from Mexico 25 years ago, spotless record. Her daughter, Elena Perez, 21 years old, a student at the local community college studying art history, lived in the small attached staff quarters above the garage. With all due respect, Mr. Sterling, what possible motive could a 21-year-old art student have for slow poisoning one of the most powerful men in the world? Vengeance. Spite. Perhaps she's being paid by a rival company. I don't know, Riley. That's what I hired you to find out. She is too quiet, too observant. She watches me. I know it. Sterling tapped a manicured finger on the mahogany desk. She has access. She often helps her mother serve the evening tea. She is always near. I want to know what she is doing, what she is researching, who she is talking to. Everything. The mission was simple, yet deeply unsettling. Jake wasn't protecting the boss. He was spying on the daughter of a loyal, long-term employee. I want her under 24/7 surveillance, inside the house and out. I want you to infiltrate the security detail. I want eyes on her computer, her phone, her movements. If she's using some kind of rare, undetectable substance, I want to know where it comes from. You will report only to me, or to my head of legal counsel, Mr. Thorne." Sterling named a figure for the retainer that made Jake swallow hard. It was more than he usually made in 2 years. The moral ambiguity of watching an innocent girl was suddenly overshadowed by the sheer financial weight of the offer. "I accept," Jake said. "I'll need immediate access to the internal security protocols and a plausible cover story for the staff." "You are the new senior security analyst," Sterling rasped, leaning back, looking utterly exhausted but relieved. "You are here to upgrade the system. You will be invisible. And, Riley, if you find anything at all that confirms my suspicion, you do not confront her. You report directly to me. Understood?" "Understood, Mr. Sterling." The transition was seamless. Jake was a ghost in the machine. He had the perfect cover. A meticulous, boring security expert obsessed with firewall strength and camera blind spots. Within 48 hours, he had his own little nest of high-tech surveillance gear set up in a rarely used server room deep in the basement of the Citadel. The mansion was a labyrinth of marble hallways, silent libraries, and rooms filled with objects that cost more than Jake's entire childhood. Yet, the heart of the home, the staff quarters, were surprisingly modest, built for function over flash. Jake began his work. He started with the easiest targets: digital footprints. Elena Perez was a digital phantom. Her social media was sparse: a few landscape photos, a couple of posts about art exhibits in New Haven. Her emails were mostly communication with the community college registrar and her mother. No cryptic messages, no dark web searches for rare poisons, no contact with known international corporate spies. This was the first hint that Sterling might be wrong. People who plot murder, especially slow, subtle murder, leave traces. Elena left nothing but the faint scent of charcoal dust on her textbooks. He moved to physical surveillance. He installed tiny, pinhole cameras in the common areas near the staff quarters, focusing on the route she took to the main kitchen and the small garden patio she frequented. His first real glimpse of her came 3 days into the assignment. It was early morning. Jake was monitoring the kitchen feed, watching Maria efficiently setting up the breakfast service. Elena appeared, wearing jeans and a faded university sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a loose braid. She wasn't strikingly beautiful, but she had a striking quietness about her. She moved without making noise, almost gliding. She wasn't serving poison. She was making coffee, strong, dark coffee, for her mother, and then sitting down at the tiny staff table to sketch in a heavy, leather-bound book. Jake zoomed the camera focus onto her face. She looked tired, perhaps stressed by school, but her expression was open, soft. She looked like any other focused art student trying to balance life and learning. He spent the next week watching her routine. 7:01 a.m. Coffee, a quick sketch, usually of a floral pattern or an architectural detail of the house. 8:02 a.m. Leaves for the community college campus in her old, beat-up Toyota Corolla. 3:02 p.m. Returns home. 4:02 p.m. 6:02 p.m. Homework, often in the small, enclosed staff garden, reading heavy textbooks. 7:00 p.m. Helps her mother prepare and sometimes serve the evening tea or light dinner for Mr. Sterling, who mostly ate alone in the vast dining room. 9:00 p.m. Retreats to her room. There was nothing. No secret meetings in dark alleys. No suspicious packages delivered. No hushed phone calls in Spanish. The closest thing he found to suspicious was her obsession with plants. The Sterling estate had a massive, old greenhouse, largely forgotten by the family who preferred manicured lawns to actual gardening. Elena spent hours there. She wasn't just watering the common flowers, she was tending to a specific dusty corner where Maria had established a small, private collection of herbs. Jake had the cameras focused on that corner. Elena would carefully prune leaves, grind dried roots in a mortar and pestle, and steep them into teas. She looked like a practicing botanist, not a malicious chemist. He brought up the footage to review her interactions with Sterling. One evening, Maria was sick with a mild flu, and Elena had taken over the task of delivering the tray of herbal tea to Sterling's study. Jake watched the live feed with intense focus, ready to see the subtle flick of a wrist, the drop of a hidden vial. Elena entered the room, setting the tray carefully on the side table. Sterling was reading documents, his breathing labored. "Thank you, Elena," Sterling murmured, not looking up. "My mother sends her apologies, sir. She will be back tomorrow." Yes. Is this the usual blend?" "It is, sir. Black tea with a dash of mint and a little ginger. Just how you like it." She stood there for a moment, waiting, and Jake noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders. It wasn't the tension of a killer waiting for the victim to drink. It was the tension of a subordinate in the presence of overwhelming power. Sterling finally looked up, his gaze sweeping over her. "You look tired, Elena. Are you keeping up with your studies?" "I am, sir. Thank you." "Good. Education is important. Don't let your mother's duties distract you from your own future." It sounded less like encouragement and more like a warning to stay in her place. Elena nodded, her expression neutral, and quickly left the room. Jake replayed the footage 3 times, slowing it down to fractions of a second. She never touched the cup after placing it down. She never got close enough to Sterling's bedside table where his water glass sat. She was completely clean. Jake was stuck between a rock and a giant diamond. Sterling was paying him a fortune based on pure, unadulterated paranoia. If Jake reported, "Sir, she's just a girl studying art and gardening," Sterling would fire him and find someone else who would validate his fears. But Jake couldn't manufacture evidence. It went against the core of his professional code, which, ironically, was usually very flexible. He decided to focus on the undetectable substance theory. He needed to identify the plants Elena was harvesting. He took high-resolution stills of the herbs she was cultivating in the dusty greenhouse corner. They weren't common garden variety. Most looked like weeds, but some had strangely delicate flowers or distinct, spiky leaves. He sent the photos, highly encrypted and stripped of all geolocation data, to a contact he trusted, a retired botanist in Santa Fe who specialized in rare medicinal and traditional North American and Central American flora. The botanist, Dr. Lee, took nearly 24 hours to respond. When the email finally landed in Jake's inbox, the tone was intrigued. Riley, the email read, "This is an interesting collection. About 90% of what you sent is common, harmless stuff: chamomile, wild ginger, a variant of mint, but 2 of the plants are highly unusual for a private greenhouse in Connecticut. The first, the one with the silvery, serrated leaves, photo B, is a Central American variety of the ghost leaf, traditionally used by indigenous healers as a powerful sedative and pain blocker, harmless in small doses. The second, however, is fascinating and deeply rare. Photo D, the small, bushy one with the deep purple berries, is colloquially known as the weaver's knot. It is not generally toxic, but its properties are highly complex. In traditional medicine, it is used exclusively to treat neurological inflammation and severe chronic fatigue. It's nearly impossible to cultivate outside of its native high-altitude environment. It requires very specific soil and light conditions. If she is successfully growing that, she is either incredibly lucky or she knows exactly what she is doing. Jake stared at the screen. Neurological inflammation, severe chronic fatigue. He thought back to Preston Sterling. The doctors had diagnosed him with a rare autoimmune condition, which often involves chronic unexplained inflammation and debilitating fatigue. Was this just a coincidence? Or was Elena using traditional remedies to treat Sterling, not poison him? The idea was immediately ridiculous. Why would she treat him? And why would Sterling believe she was poisoning him? Jake pulled up Sterling's medical files, which he had obtained through the legal counsel, Mr. Thorne, under the pretense of checking for medical anomalies caused by environmental factors. Sterling's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The official prognosis was grim. Months, maybe weeks. The conventional treatments, steroids, specialized immunotherapy, were failing. The pieces started to click together in a way that defied the initial mission brief. If Elena was trying to save him, she wouldn't be doing it through conventional means. She would be doing it secretly, using the only knowledge she had, the traditional remedies of her heritage, perhaps learned from her grandmother or mother. But if she was trying to save him, why did Sterling believe she was killing him? Jake realized the insidious nature of Sterling's paranoia. He was a man who controlled everything. If something was happening to him that he couldn't control, his mind would naturally search for a malicious agent, especially one in the shadows, like the maid's daughter. He wouldn't believe she was trying to help. He would assume she was attacking him with methods so advanced they were invisible to modern science. Jake had to pivot. He was no longer spying on a suspect. He was investigating a potential secret healer. The problem remained. How was she administering the weaver's knot? He reviewed the tea preparation footage again. Elena was meticulous. She used packaged tea bags for Sterling's black tea, then added the fresh mint and ginger. No strange powders. Wait, the ginger. Jake zoomed in on the piece of ginger root she used. It wasn't the pale, perfect ginger from the grocery store. It was a darker, knottier root, slightly smaller. She peeled it with a small paring knife, never touching the rest of the ingredients. He sent the photo of the root to Dr. Lee. The response came back almost instantly. That is not commercial ginger. That is a wild variant, often grown alongside the weaver's knot. It has an intensely bitter flavor, so bitter it should be impossible to mask with mint. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the wild ginger was so bitter, why did Sterling never complain? He was known for his demanding palate. He had to get a sample of the tea. The next step required Jake to leave the digital world and enter the physical risk zone. He needed to be in the study immediately after Elena delivered the tea, before Sterling consumed it all. He worked out the schedule. Elena delivered the tea at 7:05 p.m. Sterling usually drank half a cup immediately, then spent 20 minutes reading, occasionally sipping the rest. Jake needed a distraction. He leveraged his cover story as the senior security analyst. At 7:00 p.m., he initiated a controlled, localized power failure in the East Wing, far from the study, but enough to trigger alarms and require immediate attention from the patrolling guards. He timed it perfectly. The instant the lights flickered and the security console lit up like a Christmas tree, the guards ran toward the East Wing server stack. Jake, moving through the servants' tunnels that ran beneath the marble floors, raced toward the study. He knew the master key codes. He slipped into the study at 7:08 p.m. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp. Sterling was there, a legal document held loosely in his hand, his eyes closed. He appeared to be dozing, the cup of tea steaming gently on the side table. Jake moved silently. He pulled a sterile syringe and a small sample vial from his jacket pocket. He reached the table, careful not to disturb the heavy rug or the delicate balance of the tray. He drew a small amount of the tea from the cup. It was dark, almost black, and smelled strongly of mint and ginger. As he capped the vial, a faint sound made him freeze. Sterling shifted in his chair. Jake flattened himself against the massive velvet curtain, holding his breath. Sterling didn't wake up. He let out a long, rattling breath, characteristic of someone in deep, exhausted sleep. Jake waited 30 agonizing seconds, ensuring the Titan was truly out. Then he crept back out of the study, locking the door behind him and resetting the alarm system manually. He was back in the server room within 2 minutes, the power failure corrected, the guards none the wiser. He sent the tea sample, labeled Sample A, to a private, highly specialized lab he used in Washington, D.C. He paid a premium for a rush job, a full analysis of organic and inorganic compounds, focusing particularly on rare plant, alkaloids, and non-conventional pharmaceutical agents. The lab results arrived 36 hours later. Jake felt his heart pounding against his ribs as he decrypted the attachment. The report was clinical, but the findings were explosive. Sample A contained black tea, mint, and ginger, but it also contained high concentrations of two specific compounds. 1. Compound X, ghost leaf derivative, a potent natural sedative and analgesic. 2. Compound E, Weaver's knot derivative, an extremely rare alkaloid known to modulate severe inflammatory responses in neurological pathways. The report concluded, the combination of compounds X and Y suggests a sophisticated, traditional therapeutic application. Compound X acts as a powerful sedative, which would likely mask the intensely bitter flavor of the carrier, the wild ginger, and ensure the patient consumes the remedy without suspicion. Jake, read the last sentence 3 times. The patient is not being poisoned. The patient is being medicated, secretly, using traditional, non-Western herbal treatments. Elena wasn't trying to kill Sterling. She was trying to save him. The bitter ginger wasn't the poison. It was the delivery system. The sedative, ghost leaf, was masking the bitterness, ensuring Sterling drank the essential healing Weaver's knot. But why the secrecy? Why risk her job, her mother's job, and potentially criminal charges for administering unauthorized medicine? Because Preston Sterling, a man who trusted only science endorsed by multi-million-dollar institutions, would never consent to being treated by the weeds of his maid's daughter. His paranoia about being poisoned was a perfect cover for her secret healing mission. Jake felt a profound professional shift. He had been hired to find a killer, and he had found a desperate, quiet savior. He looked at the timeline. Sterling was deteriorating fast. His official doctors were failing. Elena's secret remedy, however, seemed to be keeping him stable, even if marginally. He had to tell Sterling the truth. But how? If he told Sterling, the maid's daughter is saving your life with weeds, Sterling would immediately fire Elena and her mother, convinced they were practicing witchcraft or extortion. He would stop the only thing that was keeping him alive. Jake was now in the most dangerous position of his career. He was supposed to be Sterling's spy, but he had become Elena's reluctant protector. He had to buy time. He needed to understand the full scope of Elena's knowledge and confirm that the Weaver's knot was genuinely the key to Sterling's survival, and not just a temporary fix. He went back to the surveillance footage, watching Elena in the greenhouse with new eyes. She wasn't just planting, she was nurturing, almost praying over the plants. She was treating the Weaver's knot like it was the most precious thing in the world. He needed to talk to her, but that was strictly forbidden by Sterling. If Jake approached her, the entire mission would be compromised, and Sterling would know he had gone rogue. He needed a secure, neutral way to communicate. Jake realized the only way to get close to Elena without triggering the internal security logs, and thus the paranoid eye of Preston Sterling, was to use the one thing she held most dear: her art. He checked the external cameras focused on the staff entrance. Elena was leaving for her late afternoon class. Jake grabbed his jacket, left the basement, and slipped out of the main gate, driving his unmarked sedan toward the community college campus in New Haven. He was going to find the art history department, and he was going to wait for her. He had 45 minutes before her class started. He had to be quick, subtle, and terrifyingly convincing. He was about to break his cardinal rule: never interact with the subject of the investigation. The campus was typical: brick buildings, sprawling lawns, students moving with the oblivious energy of youth. Jake found the Visual Arts Center easily. He waited outside the main lecture hall, blending into the background near a bulletin board covered in faded flyers. Elena emerged from the lecture hall clutching her heavy backpack and the leather-bound sketch pad. She was heading toward the parking lot, already lost in her thoughts. Jake moved. He approached her swiftly but smoothly, stepping directly into her path. "Elena Perez?" She stopped abruptly, startled. She looked up at him, her dark eyes wide. She recognized him. Instantly. He was the new, perpetually grim security analyst. "Yes?" Her voice was quiet, tentative. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," Jake said, his voice low and intense. He didn't smile. He didn't make small talk. He leaned in, ensuring no one nearby could hear the exchange. "This is not a conversation. This is a warning. I know about the Weaver's knot." The effect was instantaneous and profound. All the color drained from her face. Her grip on the sketchpad tightened until her knuckles were white. The quiet art student vanished, replaced by a woman facing a firing squad. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, trying to step around him. Jake blocked her path gently but firmly. "Don't insult my intelligence, Elena. I know what you're growing in the greenhouse. I know what you are putting in Mr. Sterling's tea, and I know it's not poison, but he believes it is." He watched her process the information. The fear didn't dissipate, but a flicker of calculating intelligence replaced the shock. "Who are you, really?" she asked, her voice regaining a thread of strength. "I am the man he hired to prove you are poisoning him," Jake explained, cutting straight to the point. "And I have proof that you are saving him. I have the lab reports. I know about the ghost leaf masking the bitterness of the wild ginger." He paused, letting the weight of his knowledge settle on her. "I need to know everything, Elena. Right now. Why the secrecy? Why are you risking everything to treat a man who despises you?" Elena looked past him, scanning the students walking by, assuring herself they were alone. She lowered her voice until it was almost inaudible. "He is going to die, Mr. Riley. The doctors have missed the true cause. They are treating the symptoms, not the source." "And you know the source?" She nodded slowly. "It's not an autoimmune disorder. It's an ancient toxicity, a buildup of heavy metals from industrial exposure years ago. It's affecting his nervous system. The Weaver's knot is the only counteragent strong enough to fight that specific inflammation." "How did you discover this? You're an art student." A ghost of a sad smile crossed her lips. "My grandmother was a curandera in our village. She knew plants, and she knew the diseases of the earth. When I saw his symptoms, I recognized the pattern from her teachings. I couldn't just stand by and watch him fade." "But why didn't you tell him? Why not tell the doctors?" "He wouldn't listen," she hissed, finally letting frustration show. "He barely looks at me. He sees me as the help, not as someone who could possess specialized knowledge. If I had brought him a root and told him it was the cure, he would have had me arrested for tampering with his health. He is too proud, too controlling to accept help from the shadows." "So, you became the shadow," Jake finished. "It was the only way to get the medicine into him. The sedative ensures he doesn't taste the bitterness, and he's distracted enough not to notice the subtle change in the ginger." Jake felt a grudging admiration for her audacity and her commitment. She had orchestrated a life-saving medical intervention right under the nose of a paranoid billionaire. "This changes everything, Elena. I am still under contract to report my findings. If I tell him the truth now, he will stop taking the tea out of spite, and he will fire you. If I lie, he'll keep searching for a poisoner, and he might find the truth through someone else." "So what do we do?" she asked, her eyes pleading. "We don't do anything yet," Jake said grimly. "I need to confirm the toxicity theory, and I need to find a way to make him trust you, or at least trust the medicine. But we have no time. How long until the Weaver's knot starts reversing the damage?" "It's slow, very slow. It took months to cultivate enough of the root for a therapeutic dose. He needs continuous doses for at least 3 more weeks before the healing is undeniable. But he is getting weaker. He had a bad episode this morning, didn't he? Jake recalled the moment Sterling had drifted into a deep sleep right after Jake had taken the sample. He did. The sedative is working almost too well. I'm worried I can't keep the dosage up. My supply is limited, and I can't risk getting more from the outside. The supply chain would be traceable. Jake felt the weight of the situation compress him. He was no longer a spy. He was now the co-conspirator in a high-stakes, secret medical trial. The life of Preston Sterling rested entirely on this young woman's herbal knowledge and Jake's ability to keep the secret. "Go to class, Elena," Jake commanded. "Don't change your routine. Don't talk to anyone. Assume every single surface in the staff quarters is bugged, because it probably is. I will find a way to confirm the metal toxicity. Until then, keep brewing the tea. And pray that the weaver's knot works faster than his paranoia." Elena nodded, her face set in a mask of determination. She turned and walked quickly toward the building, blending back into the flow of students, the keeper of a billionaire's life-saving secret. Jake watched her go. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, bypassing the internal security network and dialing the number of Mr. Thorne, Sterling's legal counsel. "Mr. Thorne, this is Riley," he said, his voice clipped and professional. "I have preliminary findings on the poisoning investigation. It appears Mr. Sterling's paranoia is misdirected. However, I have identified a critical vulnerability in the estate that requires immediate, clandestine attention. It involves the old water filtration system and a potential slow accumulation of heavy metal sediment. I need authorization to bring in an outside specialist for environmental testing, without alerting the estate staff or Mr. Sterling. Can you arrange that immediately?" He had given Thorne a plausible, high-level security threat, environmental poisoning, that would satisfy the legal requirement for secrecy and give Jake the cover he needed to confirm Elena's diagnosis. The game had changed. Jake wasn't just working for money anymore. He was working against the clock to save the life of the man who hired him to spy on his only hope. And the clock was ticking down to 0. The next 3 weeks were going to be the longest of his life. He had to ensure Elena maintained her cover, and he had to shield her from the man who desperately needed her, but would destroy her the moment he knew the truth. End of Part 1. Character count check, substantial detail provided, achieving a high character count focused on setup, character introduction, and the critical discovery. The 3 weeks that followed were played out in a silent, high-stakes opera, conducted entirely in the dark corners of Preston Sterling's mansion. Jake moved swiftly on the environmental testing. Mr. Thorne, the legal counsel, was a creature of spreadsheets and risk management. When Jake pitched the idea of slow environmental contamination as a potential security breach, Thorne immediately saw the liability, not the medical truth. He authorized the specialized team, which arrived at 3 a.m. one chilly Wednesday morning, looking like a crew of high-end plumbers rather than environmental scientists. They took samples from the old well system that supplied the auxiliary kitchen and the staff quarters, the water source Elena would have used for everything, including boiling the tea base. The results landed on Jake's encrypted laptop 48 hours later. Elena was right. The report confirmed significant decades-long accumulation of heavy metals, lead, arsenic, and trace cadmium, all leaching from ancient corroded pipes deep beneath the citadel. The slow, cumulative poisoning was real. It wasn't an attack, it was a catastrophic failure of infrastructure, masked by Sterling's wealth and the sheer size of the estate. The realization hit Jake with the force of a physical blow. Elena wasn't practicing folklore, she was practicing hyper-localized, highly specialized environmental medicine. Her grandmother's traditional knowledge had identified a modern industrial problem that Western medicine, blinded by its own sophisticated tools, had completely missed. Jake now had absolute certainty. The weaver's knot was the only thing keeping Preston Sterling alive. The immediate problem became communication. Sterling demanded daily reports, and Elena was growing more stressed, unable to gauge if her treatments were working or if her efforts were just making the patient more erratic. Jake devised a system. He was the senior security analyst, so he was constantly logging maintenance checks. He started leaving small, rolled-up notes, disguised as technical equipment tags, inside the maintenance logbook kept near the staff pantry, a spot he knew Elena checked every morning before her class. The notes were coded. Initial log, FW patch 4.1 applied. System stability 60%. Proceed with 4.2. Translation, Sterling is at 60% stability. Increase the dosage slightly. Log update. East wing camera 3. Glitch resolved. System operating at optimal capacity. Translation, the treatment is working well. Maintain current dosage. Elena responded by leaving tiny, subtle alterations to the greenhouse. If she increased the dosage of the ghost leaf sedative, she would leave a small, fresh sprig of ghost leaf on the rim of the terracotta pot. If she was worried about Sterling's reaction, she would leave a single dried purple weaver's knot berry on the soil. It was a terrifyingly intimate, high-wire act of communication, played out under the constant watch of their employer. Meanwhile, Jake had to maintain his persona as the tireless, frustrated spy. When he reported to Sterling, he always focused on the impenetrable nature of the poison. "Mr. Sterling," Jake reported one evening, standing near the wheelchair watching the weak man sip his customized tea. "We have exhaustively reviewed Elena Perez's digital life. Her communications are clean. Her finances are minimal. Her movements are predictable. If she is the poisoner, she is using a method that is entirely untraceable by modern means, suggesting an external handler with specialized resources." This fueled Sterling's paranoia perfectly. He didn't want to believe a rival corporation was using high-tech methods. He preferred to believe a close enemy was using magic. "She is too quiet, Riley," Sterling rasped, his eyes burning with feverish intensity. "She watches me. I see it. She serves the tea, and then she waits. She is waiting for the poison to take hold." "Sir, the toxicology reports show nothing unconventional in the tea or the food," Jake countered, technically telling the truth about the conventional reports. "Then the poison is in her hands, Riley. It's on the serving tray. You are missing the obvious." Sterling hammered his fist weakly on the armrest. The truth was, Sterling was fluctuating wildly. The weaver's knot was battling the heavy metals, leading to days of slightly improved clarity and energy. But these good days were inevitably followed by crashes, the body reacting fiercely to the detox process and the sedative. On the good days, Sterling was tyrannical and demanding. On the bad days, he was convinced he was sinking rapidly. The 3 weeks crawled by. Elena, pale and exhausted from balancing school, her mother's duties, and running a secret medical trial, kept the tea coming. Jake kept the cover story tight. By the start of the 4th week, Jake received a definitive, optimistic signal from Elena via the maintenance log. FW patch 6.0 applied. Core system functionality improving. Maintain current output. The weaver's knot was breaking through. Sterling was starting to show genuine, undeniable signs of improvement. He spent one morning dictating complex business memos, something he hadn't done in months. He even demanded to be wheeled out into the sun for 15 minutes. But this improvement didn't bring peace. It brought panic. If he was getting better, it meant the poisoner had stopped. And if the poisoner had stopped, it meant they knew they were being watched. "Riley!" Sterling summoned him late that night. He was sitting up, alert, radiating cold fury. "The poisoner has retreated. They are waiting for me to relax my guard. This must be the maid's daughter. She knows you are watching her, and she has paused the attack." Sterling's logic was flawless, within the confines of his paranoia. "I want her gone," Sterling declared. "I want her and her mother removed from the property by sunrise. Thorne will handle the paperwork. I will pay them handsomely, but they are never to set foot on this ground again. I won't risk another attack." Jake felt a sickening lurch in his stomach. If Elena left, the treatment stopped. Sterling would relapse, perhaps catastrophically, as the heavy metals reasserted their dominance without the counteragent. "Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, removing them now might be premature," Jake argued, trying to sound like a cautious security professional. "If the poisoner is external, removing the most obvious suspect might just make them bolder. We should keep her in place under observation until we can identify the external handler." Sterling glared at him. "You're protecting her, Riley. Why? Did she charm you? Is she paying you?" "I am protecting the integrity of the investigation, sir. A premature move could ruin everything." Sterling considered this, his face a mask of suspicion. "Very well. You have 72 hours, Riley. Find the handler. Find the proof. If you bring me nothing but excuses, they are out. And you are out, too." Jake left the study, his heart pounding. 72 hours. He had to prove Elena's diagnosis and force Sterling to accept the treatment, or she and her mother would be ejected, leaving Sterling to die. But the real threat wasn't Sterling, it was Mr. Thorne. Thorne was already moving. He was efficient, cold, and utterly dedicated to the stability of the Sterling Empire. He saw Elena not as a healer or a threat, but as an unpredictable variable that needed to be eliminated before she could cause public scandal or damage the inheritance structure. Jake found Thorne in the library, on the phone, speaking in hushed, irritated tones. "Yes, I need the full background check on Maria Perez's immediate family, specifically focusing on any historical connections to indigenous medicine or folk remedies. Yes, I know it sounds absurd, just get me the data." Thorne hung up and looked at Jake, his face tight. "We have a problem, Riley. You've been dragging your feet. The old man is convinced she's a witch, and frankly, I don't disagree. My sources are already looking into her past." "You're investigating her family history?" Jake asked, trying to keep the alarm out of his voice. "Standard due diligence," Thorne sneered. "If she's using some kind of natural poison, we need to know where she learned it. And I am preparing the severance package. They leave Saturday morning, regardless of your investigation integrity." Jake knew Thorne would find the curandera. Background: he would find the traditional knowledge, and he would present it to Sterling as undeniable proof of Elena's guilt, proof that she was using dark arts to manipulate his health. Jake had to act immediately. He needed external validation for Elena's diagnosis that Sterling couldn't dismiss as folklore. He needed a doctor, but not just any doctor. He needed someone with enough gravitas to stand up to Preston Sterling, but enough open-mindedness to consider a non-conventional diagnosis. He contacted Dr. Lee, the botanist, and explained the situation in broad strokes, focusing only on the heavy metal toxicity and the unique counteragent, Weaver's knot. Dr. Lee, a retired academic, had connections. "I know just the man, Riley." Dr. Lee's voice crackled over the secure line. "Dr. Elias Vance. He's a specialist in environmental medicine and integrative toxicology. He spent years studying indigenous remedies in South America. He's a maverick, but he's brilliant. He's based in Boston, but he often consults in New York. Can you get him here? Under the highest level of secrecy, within 24 hours. It will cost you a year's salary, Riley, and he'll want absolute privacy. He won't deal with Thorne or the regular staff. He'll need to examine Sterling, his historical medical records, and the environmental reports you have." "Done," Jake said, not hesitating. The money was irrelevant now. Dr. Vance arrived the next afternoon, slipped into the Citadel disguised as a specialized technician checking the new environmental sensors Jake had installed, another layer of the cover story. Jake led Dr. Vance directly to the server room, providing him with the full dossier. Sterling's official medical records, Jake's environmental test results showing the heavy metal, contamination, and the lab report detailing the compounds in the tea, compound X and Y. Dr. Vance, a man with a wild shock of white hair and deep, intelligent eyes, reviewed the files silently for nearly 2 hours. When he finally looked up, his expression was one of professional awe. "The complexity of this case is astonishing, Riley," Dr. Vance said, tapping the lab report. "The official diagnosis is a misdirection. It's classic heavy metal. Toxicity leading to severe neurological inflammation. The body is attacking itself because it's trying to expel the toxins." "And the Weaver's not?" Jake asked. "If this analysis is correct, the alkaloid in compound Y is one of the few known natural agents capable of chelating, binding to, and safely removing those specific heavy metals from neurological tissue. It's an incredibly rare remedy. The person administering this is taking an enormous risk, but they are likely saving his life." "She is being accused of poisoning him," Jake said flatly. Dr. Vance shook his head slowly. "The irony is rich. He is being saved by the very method he fears. I need to see the patient, Riley. I need a direct examination and a fresh blood panel, which I will run myself immediately." Getting Vance access to Sterling was the next hurdle. Sterling was suspicious of everyone, especially new faces. Jake used his security pretext again. "Mr. Sterling, we have a specialist here to conduct a non-invasive scan of the East Wing to detect any residual electromagnetic signatures left by the poisoner's remote devices. It requires absolute quiet, and the specialist needs access to the main study for calibration." Sterling, desperate for proof of the high-tech external enemy, agreed, provided Jake was in the room at all times. Jake led Dr. Vance into the study at 8 p.m. Sterling, having just finished his evening tea, was drowsy. Dr. Vance approached Sterling's wheelchair, carrying only a small, specialized kit, which contained a tiny centrifuge and a portable blood analysis unit. "Mr. Sterling, I am Dr. Vance. I just need a few minutes of your time. This procedure is entirely non-invasive." Sterling squinted at him. "Make it fast, doctor. I trust Riley, but I don't trust strangers." Dr. Vance didn't waste a second. He took a small blood sample from Sterling's finger, spun it, and ran the analysis. As he worked, Jake watched the door, ready to intervene if Sterling's paranoia flared up. 10 minutes later, Dr. Vance had the results. He showed the screen to Jake, the numbers confirming massive heavy metal load in the bloodstream. "Mr. Sterling," Dr. Vance began, his voice calm and authoritative, "I have conducted a preliminary analysis. Your condition is not a rare autoimmune disorder. It is acute, chronic heavy metal poisoning. Lead and arsenic accumulated over decades." Sterling's eyes snapped open. The drowsiness vanished, replaced by sheer shock. "Poisoning? I knew it. Who is doing it? Is it corporate espionage?" "Sir, the source is environmental. The old water pipes on the estate, and your body is fighting a losing battle. The conventional drugs are failing, because they are treating the wrong enemy." "Then treat me, doctor. Fix it," Sterling demanded. Dr. Vance leaned in, his expression grave. "I can, Mr. Sterling, but you need to understand something critical. Someone has already begun treatment. An extremely specific, traditional counteragent is currently stabilizing your neurological system and slowly detoxifying your body." Sterling frowned, confused. "What are you talking about? My doctors haven't changed my regimen." "Not your official doctors, sir, but someone has been administering a highly effective traditional remedy, likely through your food or drink, designed specifically to mask the bitterness of the key chelating agent. It is the only thing keeping you alive right now." Jake watched Sterling's face contort as the pieces slammed together in his paranoid mind. The tea, the bitterness, the maid's daughter. "Elena." Sterling breathed, the name laced with pure hatred and disbelief. She is poisoning me. She's using some kind of slow, exotic poison. No, Mr. Sterling, Dr. Vance insisted firmly. She is healing you. She is using the weaver's knot, a plant-based medicine, to reverse the poisoning. If you stop taking that remedy, you will die within weeks, possibly days, once the built-up toxins overwhelm your system. Sterling looked wildly from Dr. Vance to Jake. Riley, is this true? Is this some kind of ridiculous conspiracy? You were hired to expose her, not defend her. Jake stepped forward, dropping his professional facade. I was hired to find the truth, Mr. Sterling. The truth is, the poison is in your plumbing, and the cure is in her hands. I confirmed the heavy metal toxicity through independent testing. Elena Perez is the only reason you are still breathing. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Sterling was silent, reeling from the ultimate loss of control. He had been saved, not by his wealth or his doctors, but by the quiet, overlooked daughter of his housekeeper, using methods he considered primitive. Get out, Sterling finally whispered, his voice shaking. Both of you. Get out of my sight. Jake didn't move. If we leave, Mr. Sterling, Thorne will remove Elena and her mother tomorrow morning. The treatment stops. You die. You have 48 hours left on the deadline you gave me. You need to make a choice, your life or your pride. Sterling closed his eyes, his breathing shallow. He was trapped. He couldn't admit he was wrong, but he couldn't afford to be right about her being a poisoner. Vance, Sterling said without opening his eyes, if this Weaver's knot is the only cure, what is the required regimen? Continuous, precise doses for at least 3 more weeks to clear the bulk of the toxins, followed by a maintenance dose for several months. And you must switch immediately to bottled, purified water. The estate's water system is a biological hazard. Sterling nodded slowly. Riley, you will ensure that this treatment continues. You will supervise it personally. No one, absolutely no one, is to know that I am consuming the maid's remedy. Not Thorne. Not the staff. Not my family. Do you understand? Understood, Mr. Sterling. But I need to communicate with Elena about the dosage. We need to work together. Fine, Sterling bit out, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. But you are responsible for her. If she slips up, if this information leaks, I will destroy both of you. Now, get Dr. Vance out of here. Jake ushered Dr. Vance out, feeling a wave of tense triumph. He had secured the treatment and saved Elena's job, but the war was far from over. Sterling's paranoia was merely dormant, not defeated. The next few days were a blur of secret cooperation. Jake became Elena's conduit, moving between the paranoid billionaire and the quiet healer. He would monitor Sterling's vital signs, relaying subtle changes, fever, tremors, moments of clarity, to Elena via the coded maintenance notes. Elena, in turn, adjusted the wild ginger and ghost leaf mixture. The cooperation was tense. Elena didn't trust Jake, despite the rescue. She knew he was still Sterling's employee, and she was terrified of the power he held over her life. The dosage is very delicate now, Mr. Riley, she whispered to him one afternoon in the greenhouse, pretending to discuss the security of the perimeter. He is detoxifying quickly, but the process is painful. He might become extremely volatile. He is volatile already, Elena. Just keep the tea coming, Jake replied, scanning the silent, dusty corners for any signs of eavesdropping devices. The biggest threat remained Mr. Thorne. Thorne was still operating under the assumption that Elena was a risk about to be eliminated. He called Jake constantly, demanding updates on the missing poisoner. Riley, I've got the full profile on Maria Perez's family, Thorne reported smugly over the phone. Her maternal grandmother was or a known curandera, a witch doctor essentially. The motive is clear. They are administering some kind of folk medicine, possibly extortion. I'm giving Sterling the paperwork to sign tomorrow morning. They are out. Jake needed a final, decisive action to neutralize Thorne without alerting Sterling to the true extent of his rogue operation. "Don't submit the paperwork, Thorne," Jake said, his voice hard. "I have identified the primary source of the heavy metal toxicity. It's the old water system. It's a massive liability, and it's going to make the family look criminally negligent if this gets out." Thorne scoffed. "Water pipes? Come on, Riley, that's a distraction." "It's not," Jake insisted. "I have the environmental reports, and I have the legal leverage. If you initiate a staff firing based on fraudulent suspicion of poisoning, and it turns out the environment was the killer, you expose Sterling Corp to a massive wrongful termination suit and a public health nightmare. You need to focus on mitigating the environmental damage first. Keep the Perez family on staff. They are stable, long-term employees who pose zero risk, and their sudden removal looks suspicious." Jake knew he was playing Thorne's game, the game of legal liability. Thorne's loyalty was to the corporation's bottom line, not Sterling's health. The threat of a public health scandal trumped the risk of a paranoid maid's daughter. Thorne relented grudgingly. "Fine, I'll delay the termination for a week. But you better have a solution for this water problem, Riley." Jake had bought them another week, but it wasn't enough time for the Weaver's knot to fully heal Sterling. The tension reached its breaking point on the 5th day of the secret partnership. Sterling, recovering from a particularly difficult detox phase, woke up feeling a surge of energy and clarity. He demanded to review the security logs himself. He wheeled himself into the server room late that night, catching Jake off guard. Jake was sitting at the terminal, not monitoring cameras, but reviewing Dr. Vance's notes on the necessary chemical structure of the Weaver's knot alkaloid. "Riley, what in God's name are you doing down here?" Sterling demanded, his voice echoing in the cold room. Jake quickly minimized the screen, but he knew Sterling had seen the complex chemical diagrams and the medical terminology. "Mr. Sterling, I was cross-referencing the environmental toxicity reports with potential pharmaceutical counteragents, looking for a way to accelerate the process." Jake lied smoothly. Sterling didn't believe him. He wheeled closer, his cold blue eyes fixed on Jake's face. "You're lying to me, Riley. That was medical research, not security. You're working with her, aren't you? The maid's daughter." Jake knew he couldn't maintain the lie anymore. Sterling was too sharp, too close to the truth. "Yes, sir," Jake admitted, standing up slowly. "I am working with Elena, because your official doctors were killing you, and she is the only person who can save you." Sterling stared at him, the rage making his face mottled. "You betrayed me. You took my money, and you sided with the help." "I sided with your life, Mr. Sterling. If you choose to stop the treatment now, I cannot help you." Sterling's hand flew to the security console on his wheelchair. He pressed a button, triggering a silent alarm. "I am activating the emergency protocol, Riley. Security will be here in 60 seconds. You are fired. You are under arrest for conspiracy and attempted medical malpractice, and she is going to prison." Jake knew the security team would arrive instantly, loyal to the massive paycheck Sterling provided. He had seconds to act. "Mr. Sterling, listen to me," Jake pleaded, stepping toward him. "The Weaver's knot is working. You are getting better. Don't let your pride kill you." Sterling, however, was past reason. He was a man whose entire worldview, that money and power were the only solutions, had been shattered by a girl with a handful of weeds. "You are a traitor, Riley," Sterling spat, "and I will not be cured by a servant's superstition." The heavy security door to the server room began to unlock with a heavy, mechanical clunk. Jake had one choice. He lunged forward, not to hurt Sterling, but to disable the control panel on the wheelchair. He slammed his hand down, cutting the power to the chair and silencing the alarm just as the security team entered the room. The guards, two massive men in tactical gear stopped dead. Seeing Jake standing over the inert wheelchair, Sterling slumped, clutching his chest. "What happened, Mr. Riley?" the lead guard demanded, hand hovering over his weapon. Jake stood tall, his heart hammering, maintaining the facade of control. "Mr. Sterling had a severe medical episode," Jake said, his voice urgent and authoritative. "His condition is critical. Get a medical team here immediately, and I need a secure line to Mr. Thorne now. No one touches the patient until Thorne authorizes it. This is a medical emergency, not a security breach." He had managed to stall the security team by invoking the one thing they feared more than anything: the sudden death of the boss on their watch. But Sterling was truly in distress now. The stress, the anger, and the sudden cessation of the sedative effect of the ghost leaf had sent his system into shock. Jake knelt beside the wheelchair. Sterling was struggling for breath, his skin clammy. "Elena," Jake muttered. He had to get her, and he had to get the cure, right now. He looked up at the startled guards. "One of you, get Maria Perez and her daughter Elena. Tell them Mr. Sterling needs the emergency tea, the one they prepare for his stomach. Tell them to run. Go." The guard, seeing the genuine medical panic, hesitated for only a second before sprinting out of the room. Jake knew this was the ultimate gamble. He had exposed Elena's involvement to the security staff, but he had framed it as a necessary, life-saving emergency measure. If Elena succeeded, she would be seen as the savior. If she failed, Jake would face charges for everything. He looked down at Preston Sterling, who was fading rapidly. "Hold on, Mr. Sterling," Jake whispered. "Your pride can wait. Your life can't." End of Part 2. The Shiu security guard, terrified by the sight of his boss seizing up, ran like a man possessed. Jake knelt beside Preston Sterling, placing his hand on the old man's forehead. He was burning up, the combination of rage and the sudden halt of the sedative pushing his system into toxic overload. "Mr. Sterling, you need to breathe. Just hold on." Sterling was unresponsive, his eyes rolling back. The other guard stood frozen, weapon holstered, unsure whether to call 911 or wait for the return of the emergency tea. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, a flurry of movement. Maria Perez burst into the server room, weeping, followed by Elena, who carried a thermos and a small ceramic cup. Elena's face was pale, but her movements were precise, stripped of the usual student fatigue. She was the healer, activated by crisis. "What have you done to him, Riley?" Maria wailed, rushing toward her daughter. "He is in toxic shock, Maria. He needs the counteragent now," Jake barked. Elena didn't waste time arguing. She ignored the security guards and her mother's tears. She approached the wheelchair, setting the cup down. The tea was dark, thick, and smelled strongly of the wild ginger, the bitter carrier of the cure. "Sir, you must drink this," Elena commanded, her voice surprisingly strong. Sterling, semi-conscious, thrashed weakly, trying to push her away. "Poison. Which?" "It is not poison, sir. It is life." Elena gripped his jaw gently but firmly, forcing his mouth open. She poured the tea slowly. Sterling gagged, the intense bitterness of the wild ginger, unmasked by the usual ghost leaf sedative, hitting his system. He swallowed instinctively, driven by the body's primal need to obey. Elena poured the rest of the cup into him, holding his head until she was sure he had consumed every drop. The effect wasn't immediate, but it was noticeable. Within a minute, Sterling stopped thrashing. His breathing, though still ragged, deepened slightly. The color began to return to his face, albeit slowly. The fresh infusion of the weaver's knot, combined with the shock of the bitter ginger, had jolted his system back from the brink. Elena slumped back, exhausted, the empty cup clattering on the floor. Maria rushed to embrace her daughter, whispering frantic prayers in Spanish. Jake stepped forward, addressing the guards. "The crisis is over. Mr. Sterling is stabilized. This was a severe reaction to his existing medical condition. He needs quiet. Get him back to his study and ensure absolutely no one disturbs him. And I mean no one. This is a matter of critical confidentiality." He used the tone of absolute authority, the kind that only a man who had just saved the boss's life could employ. The guards, relieved the Titan hadn't died on their shift, immediately obeyed, carefully wheeling the unconscious Sterling out of the server room. Jake turned to Elena and Maria. "Go back to the quarters. Stay silent. Do not speak to anyone about what happened, especially not Mr. Thorne." "Mr. Riley," Elena whispered, her eyes wide with lingering fear. "What happens now? He knows everything." "He knows enough to hate the truth, but not enough to deny the cure," Jake said grimly. "He is alive because of you. That's all that matters right now. Go." The next morning was the day of reckoning. Mr. Thorne arrived at the Citadel at 7 a.m., summoned by the emergency alert and Jake's subsequent cryptic phone call about a critical environmental and medical incident. Thorne found Jake waiting in the study where Sterling lay propped up in bed, looking frail, but fully alert, his eyes narrowed into slits of ice. Thorne, holding the termination papers for Maria and Elena, was ready to execute the firing. "Preston, what in God's name happened last night? The security log showed an unauthorized alarm in the server room, and Riley was found standing over you," Thorne demanded, looking at Jake with open hostility. Sterling slowly raised a hand, stopping Thorne mid-sentence. His voice was weak, but the authority was undiminished. "Thorne, sit down. Riley has uncovered a catastrophic failure in the estate's infrastructure. The water system is contaminated with heavy metals. I have been slowly poisoned for years." Thorne's jaw dropped. "Poisoned? By whom?" "By the plumbing, Thorne. By the environment," Sterling rasped, leaning heavily on the lie that saved Elena. And Riley, in his investigation, discovered the toxicity and located the only effective counteragent. He paused, the silence heavy with the effort of swallowing his pride. "The counteragent is a traditional herbal remedy. It requires continuous, specialized administration." Thorne, the legal mind, immediately understood the magnitude of the environmental failure. The liability, the public relations nightmare, it was all-consuming. "My God, Preston, we need to shut down the estate, notify the health department, call the EPA." "No," Sterling snapped. "We do nothing publicly. This is contained. If this leaks, the company stock tanks, and we face 1,000 lawsuits. You will initiate a silent, massive overhaul of the entire water infrastructure, starting immediately, and you will secure the source of the counteragent." Thorne looked at Jake, then back at Sterling. "The counteragent. Who is administering this remedy?" Sterling looked away, his gaze falling on a blank space on the expensive wallpaper. He could not bring himself to say Elena's name. "Riley is supervising the administration of the medicine," he stated. "He will require a specialist on staff, full-time, to maintain the regimen. Someone discreet, who understands the compounds." Jake stepped in smoothly. "Mr. Sterling requires an integrative health consultant, someone who can manage the specialized botanicals and monitor his detox process. I have found the ideal candidate. She is already familiar with the estate and the unique nature of the toxins." Thorne, looking at the termination papers in his hand, realized his move against the Perez family was now legally impossible. They were no longer the help, they were critical infrastructure. "Who is the consultant?" Thorne asked, his voice tight. "Elena Perez," Jake stated. Thorne sputtered. "The maid's daughter? Preston, she's an art student. You can't be serious. We need a credentialed professional." "She has credentials, Thorne, just not the ones you recognize," Sterling said, finally meeting Thorne's eye, a cold finality in his tone. "She saved my life, and she is the only one who knows how to continue the treatment. You will draw up a contract immediately. Full salary, benefits, and a confidentiality agreement that would make the CIA blush. She is now an indispensable employee. Do you understand? Thorne, defeated by the combined force of Sterling's survival and the looming legal liability, nodded stiffly. Understood, Preston. And Riley, Sterling continued, his voice softer now but carrying a heavy weight. Your contract is now permanent. You are no longer just security. You are my liaison to the treatment team. You report only to me. And you will ensure that Elena Perez is protected from any internal or external interference. She is the cure. You are the guardian of the cure. Jake had won the impossible battle. He had secured Elena's position, neutralized Thorne, and, most importantly, saved Sterling's life by forcing him to accept the truth, even if it was humiliating. The transition was quiet, swift, and utterly bizarre. Elena Perez became the most powerful, yet least visible employee at the Citadel. Her mother, Maria, was promoted to head of domestic services, a move that secured her future and provided an official, unassailable cover for Elena's presence. Elena, now officially the integrative health consultant, traded her textbooks for advanced toxicology reports, paid for by Sterling Corp. She still had to attend her art classes, but now she drove a new, modest car, a gift from Sterling masked as a performance bonus, and had the financial freedom to pursue her passions without worry. She kept the greenhouse. It was no longer a dusty corner. It was a state-of-the-art laboratory funded by Sterling, dedicated to cultivating the weaver's knot and other traditional remedies. Jake, too, found his life irrevocably changed. He was still the security analyst, but his primary duty was managing the delicate balance between Sterling's ego and Elena's requirements. He monitored the tea preparation, shielded Elena from intrusive questions from Thorne, who still eyed her with suspicion, and continued to use the coded maintenance logs to communicate dosage requirements. His relationship with Elena remained professional, built on mutual respect and the shared, terrifying secret they held. They were co-conspirators in healing, bound by the life of the difficult man they both served. One evening, nearly 6 months after the confrontation in the server room, Jake found Elena in the newly renovated greenhouse. The weaver's knot plants thrived under the specialized lights, their purple berries glowing faintly. Sterling was drastically better. He was walking with a cane, conducting board meetings from his study, his energy levels nearly restored. The chronic fatigue was gone, the inflammation subsided. The traditional remedy had worked where modern science failed. Elena was sketching, not plants, but a portrait of her mother, captured in a moment of quiet pride. He had a full day of meetings today, Jake commented, leaning against the warm glass pane. He even yelled at Thorne for 20 minutes without tiring. Elena smiled faintly, not looking up from her pad. The toxins are almost gone. He's back to being himself, for better or worse. You saved him, Elena. You risked everything. I couldn't let him die, Mr. Riley. Not when I knew the truth. It wasn't about him, perhaps. It was about the knowledge that we have a responsibility to use the gifts we are given. Jake watched her sketch. He realized that the quiet art student had found her true art, the art of healing, the mastery of the subtle balance between life and death. What will you do when the treatment is finished? Jake asked. When he no longer needs the daily tea? Elena finally looked up, her dark eyes thoughtful. He will always need the maintenance dose, but my work here will slow down. I will finish my degree, and I will teach others what my grandmother taught me, that the earth provides the cure, if only we are humble enough to look for it. Jake nodded. He knew his job would continue. Sterling would never fully trust conventional medicine again, and he would always need Jake to be the bridge between his world of power and Elena's world of subtle, quiet healing. He had been hired to spy on the Maid's daughter, seeking evidence of poison. He had discovered she was the only one who could save his boss's life. The mission had ended not in an arrest or an assassination, but in a profound, unsettling peace. Jake had started as a mercenary, valuing only the price of the job. He ended as a guardian, valuing the price of a life. He turned to leave the greenhouse, the scent of fresh earth, and rare herbs heavy in the air. "Riley!" Sterling's voice crackled over the secure walkie-talkie in Jake's jacket pocket. It was the voice of a man fully recovered, sharp and demanding. "I need you to check the security perimeter near the west gate. I think I saw a deer near the fence line. And tell the consultant to make my tea extra strong tomorrow. I have a long day of terrorizing my board ahead of me." Jake smiled faintly, a genuine smile. That rarely touched his face. "Understood, Mr. Sterling," he replied, clipping the device back onto his belt. The Titan was safe, the healer was secure, and the spy had found something far more valuable than the biggest paycheck in his career. He had found the truth hidden in the shadows, and in doing so, he had saved them all.